Question: do we meet our family members when we leave this lifetime? Will we ever reconnect with our close friends and family from this and previous lifetimes? Well, if you look at some of the many near-death experiences that are out there, both on YouTube and on the internet and books, you'll see that many people, when they leave the physical body, they often experience going into a tunnel of light or going into some white light, and then they meet family members that they were close to. And so this is a very common experience. But you have to kind of factor in what is people's levels of consciousness. Because the higher you go on the spiritual path, the more aware you become that you are not an earth being. You're not created here on earth. You are a spiritual being that came from somewhere else. And you become more open to connecting to your spiritual teachers. So if you have a higher level of consciousness, you are probably not going to meet family members. You are probably going to meet your spiritual teachers, the ascended masters, instead. And you can see there are some near-death experiences also where they have connected to some spiritual guides as they see it, and perhaps even religious figures like Mother Mary or Jesus. So there's a movie, quite an older movie called Contact. And the idea is that Earth receives a message from outer space on how to build a big machine. And a person goes through this machine, she goes through all these, it seems like wormholes, and goes somewhere else where she suddenly finds herself on a beach, and a person is approaching, and it's her dead father. And she, being a very scientific mind, she suddenly starts challenging him, you are not really my father. And he says, no, but we wanted to appear in a form that you could relate to. So I think this is actually a valid metaphor for what happens when people leave the physical body. You know, depending on their level of consciousness, the spiritual beings who are seeking to help that person will appear in a form that these people can relate to, that they're comfortable with. Now, I'm not saying thereby that it couldn't happen that you meet your dead relatives. I'm not saying that couldn't happen. But you have to look at it this way. Let's say that you are 30 years old when your father dies. And then you live for another 40 years. And then you go out of the body, and here you meet your father. But in those 40 years, what if your father has gone back into embodiment somewhere else on the planet? Then it could be a spiritual teacher appearing as your father because that's the person you were closest to. So I'm just saying, you know, things are probably much more, or not probably, they are much more flexible when you leave the body. The other thing is, of course, as I've explained, that there are 4 levels of the material universe: the purely physical, the emotional, the mental, and the identity. So the higher you are in consciousness, the higher you will go. If you are fairly high, you'll go to the highest level of the identity realm, where the ascended masters have spiritual retreats. They are like schoolrooms where you can then be educated in between embodiments. But some people, they can only go to the mental realm, for example, where they might encounter beings in the mental realm. And some people go to the emotional, where there are levels that are almost like hell, which is why you see some near-death experiences where they experience hell. And so again, it's individual for each one. Now, in terms of will you ever encounter people you're close to, when you take embodiment again, it's quite possible that you will embody with people you have been embodied with before. There is what we might call karmic groups, or groups of people that have created karma with themselves, with each other rather. They are very attached to each other. They have these various games they have to play with each other and things they have to work out. So it's very common that your siblings, for example, can be people you were embodied with in previous lifetimes. You can see my wife has two brothers. They were twins. And basically, from the moment they come out of the womb, if not before, they were fighting with each other. And they still are today. And you see many of these relationships where you can say, why are these people fighting? They've been fighting since they were children. Why? And you can see it goes back to a past lifetime. There can also, of course, be people who have very close relationships, very positive relationships, and it's also because they built those relationships in previous lifetimes. So this is quite common. But again, I would say that when you go higher on the spiritual path, you often go beyond these karmic relationships. So often what you will see for spiritual people, for example, is that they're not very close to their family members. This is especially true for avatars, where we often embody among people who are the original Earth inhabitants, and we don't really have a close relationship with them. But then sometimes, by being involved with the spiritual movement, we can meet people we feel closer with. And this is what has given rise to the idea that some people are twin flames or some people are soulmates. And so I'm not really so concerned about the whole twin flame idea, but soulmates is, of course, there are people you have been embodied with in previous lifetimes, you build a positive relationship with, you have supported each other, you have helped each other grow. And you can find them again in this lifetime. And when you meet these people that you've known them before, you have a relationship with them, and you trust each other. And so many times we do reincarnate with people that we have this relationship. We can, of course, also meet them in between embodiments, work with them in between embodiments to prepare for this lifetime. And you can have people who have, we all have an individual life plan, but many people, there can be a group of people who have it as part of their life plan to meet and to interact with each other and support each other in this lifetime. So I hope that answers the question a little bit.